The following is a Candlepin Stars and Strikes rebroadcast featuring some of our most memorable programs.
WNDS Sports and Tri-State Megabucks present Candlepin Stars and Strikes.
Oh, look at this. Look at this! He got it! Ready for a spare!
Candlepin Stars and Strikes is sponsored in part by Washington Toyota Dodge Nissan. Looks good.
Looks good! That's good to go! It's a
Candlepin Stars and Strikes is produced in conjunction with the New Hampshire Candlepin Bowling Association. And now your hosts, Doug Brown and Dan Murphy.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Park Place Lanes for another edition of Candlepin Stars and Strikes. Doug Brown here along with Dan Murphy. The crowd is excited because it is championship week. We're going to get our last qualifier for the Tri-State Megabucks Tournament of Champions.
Sounds like a championship audience, too. Wow. Yeah, we got two bowlers, and one of them a lot riding today. Big money involved. Winner of the ladder goes into the Tournament of Champions, chance to win a lot more. We also have to look at that total pinfall at the end.
And we're left again, as we have been all year, with our number 1 and 2 seeds for the championship match. And it's been very, very difficult for different bowlers this season to win 2 matches in a row, let alone 3 or 4. So a little something for Don Richmond to think about as he tries for his second in a row today.
That's right. It's a little strange that happens all the time. But like Don said last week, sometimes those are the bowlers that are real hot, and it carries right over into the TV show.
Well, these are the 2 bowlers that finished 1 and 2 in the roll-off that was held for this series. So let's meet them as we have a number 1 and 2 matchup once again to determine the series championship here on Stars and Strikes. First of all, our number 2 seed coming off a win last week from Holbrook, Massachusetts, Don Richmond.
Okay, Don averaging 125, high single of 201. His roll-off score is 689.
And last week, Don threw a 384 in that win over Mike Morgan, a match that featured 7 marks in a row in the second game that really helped him put it away. So Don goes for his second win in a row, and he will face a newcomer here to the Winds of New England from Rollinsford, New Hampshire, our number 1 seed, Geeorge McAllister.
I love when you make a mistake, too. It was really Tommy Morgan, but that's all right.
Did I say Mike?
Yeah, you said Mike.
Well, they're kind of interchangeable, you know.
George comes in averaging 117, high single of 188. His roll-off score, the highest roll-off sure, at 692.
Well, Mike was here, so he actually beat them both. You know?
He was the coach, so he might as well have lost too, right?
So they work as a team. Well, that's the setup here. $500 to the runner-up, $1,000 to the winner here on Stars and Strikes. And, of course, we also have a brand-new bonus ball contest to start today. We spent the last week emptying out our big barrel. So if you've sent a postcard in recently, you are back in there with a chance to win. And if you haven't sent in a postcard lately, we'll tell you how to do that a little bit later on in the show. So lots to go here in this championship week. We'll be back to get our match started. Geeorge McAllister and Don Richmond after these messages. Stay with us. Well, this is the 6th series that we have had this year, and for the 6th time we are left with our number 1 and 2 seeds to decide the championship. Geeorge McAllister, number 1, Don Richmond, number 2. They were just 3 pins apart in the roll-off. Don Richmond, as the number 2 seed, has the honor of beginning the match.
1, 2, and 7 pins. Piece of wood in front of the 1 and the 2. And look at that, twisted right around the 7. Actually hit it from behind and rocking. It's not going to go down.
So it'll be a 9.
See what happens to that piece of wood.
Wow.
Couple pieces.
Right on the head pin. Maybe a little too much of the head pin. And Don Richmond will start with 2 open frames. Two 9s, in fact. And the man just sliding into your picture right there is Geeorge McAllister, making his first appearance with us on the Winds, the left-hander. from Rollinsford, New Hampshire, up in the midway between Dover and Rochester about. And George opens with a 9.
9s all around.
George works for the Cactus Development Company.
Possibilities.
Yeah. Good wood angle here. Oh, not there though.
See if he'll try it again for a 10 box or just try to grab 3. And he did too high in the wood, so just 7.
Don Richmond touches them all, but didn't get them all. The 4-pin is going to stay up.
Even the crowd can't knock it down. Donnie turns the ball over a little bit, so the ball's going to break from right to left. Not much.
For the mark?
Oops, I gave him a 10. That was a spare. Sorry, Don.
First mark of the match.
Right in the pocket again. This time the 4 will go and the 5 will stay.
Not bad though. 2 9-drops with planks in front of both.
I didn't mean to laugh, but his son is sitting to our right. And he says, and a little help. He's kind of being kind of sarcastic there, meaning he's got a lot of help in front of the 5-pin.
So 2 spares for Don Richmond, and George McAllister still looking for his first mark, and another split. He's had 3 in a row.
2, 4, 6, and 10.
Good try by George.
Got the 2 difficult ones, the 6 and 10. Left the 4.
Wood stopped in a bad spot. And it will be a 9. $500 to the runner-up today, $1,000 to the winner, and of course the winner goes immediately into our Tournament of Champions, which begins next Sunday at 12 noon here on the Winds of New England. Well, now see, George finally found the secret. Missed the head pin and didn't get a split.
In fact, he's left with just the 1, 2, and 4. Interesting, he's a little off center on the approach to the left-hand side of the approach, but when he walks to the far extreme right, almost next to the gutter before he releases the ball. Interesting approach by George McAllister.
So Don Richmond working on that second consecutive spare.
Made a shot similar to this last week. This is a 3-6, 3-4-6. He had the 2-4-6 last week and cut it over. It's a 7 fill on the spare, 54 through 4, and a 10.
Last week, Don had 12 marks in his 384 triple, and of those 12, 7 of them came in a row in game 2.
And again, 2 and 1. This is how he started last week, though. Remember, he had a lot of splits, and then all of a sudden he found the right angle, right speed in that second game and ran those 7 marks in a row.
Yeah, and as Don was quick to point out after that match was over last week, he said, yeah, I had 7 marks in a row, and the box before the 7 and the box after the 7 in a row, he missed single pins, so he could have had even more in a row. But he's made both of his singles here today. Of course, he had considerable help with wood on both of them. George McAllister still looking for his first mark. Great pocket hit that time.
Yeah, being here the first time, it's a little different when the lights are on, the crowd and everything. That's the first hurdle, is to get your first mark under your belt. Seems to settle you down a little bit. He's got a chance here, and he's right on the 5 and 8.
Well, George didn't appear to be nervous in warm-ups, did he, Dan?
No, he got up there and threw strike, and walked off. Figured that was enough. It's like, I'm ready. I'm out of the bullpen, a couple pitches, and I'm ready.
Didn't want to waste any more strikes. Hoping for the 10-pin, gets the 4 instead.
But a piece of wood is coming, though. He's going to have a shot at the 2, 7, and 10 with the angle of the wood. He's got to be on the 2-pin.
For the spare, a little high and too high. And that will be an $8. So through 6, Don Richmond with that 13-pin lead. Again, at this stage of the match, it's much too early for the bowlers or for us to pay too much attention to it, but a little later on in the hour, we'll be thinking about the final score for our winner, because that helps determine where they will be seated in the Tournament of Champions starting next week. One thing we can tell you is that Dan Broder will be with us next week. He will be facing either Rich Clark or possibly one of these two bowlers, should they fall into the number 5 or 6 spot. 10 for Don. Big first ball. And
Oh, that's got to go.
boy, that 5-pin walked across there an inch or two and did not go over.
Wow.
Well, it's not a plank in front, but it's a frozen piece in back, and Don is right on it for another spare. And here's the first ball again.
Watch that 5-pin.
The wood helped it stay up. George grabs a couple of extra pins. The 1, 3, 7, 9, and 10. And an 8 for George. Trails by 15, but now opposite another mark.
It's a shot. He's similar to the one he put his first mark up, but this time he's got a piece of wood out in front. Oh, boy,
great
what
shot.
In between two pieces of wood to catch the 5 and the 8. Great shot by George McAllister.
I didn't think that was possible. I didn't think he had room to get that in there. Don Richmond on a spare with the strike.
How close was that to a double strike?
Right.
He walked that 5-pin over in the 8th box and comes back with this bomb. Right in the 1-3 pocket, trips the 4 and then the 9.
Looking for another. Can't break it up this time. Don has seen this lead before, hasn't he?
Yeah, got enough practice. He'll make one of these sooner or later. Eight Phil on the strike, gives him 121.
How about this for a 10? Yeah, oh yeah. Great shot.
131.
That's worth another look. The 3-7. Fine shot.
George working on a spare.
Not the ball he wanted. Sometimes you concentrate so hard on hitting the head pin on that fill ball that you forget that bad things can happen if you get too much of it. Oh,
what a try. Threw the 3-pin in between the 2 and the 4. Took out the 4, but that was all.
Takes a 10. Oh, how much would George like to put a mark up here in the 10th? Let's see what he did on that spare attempt.
Look at that. Oh. Great try.
There's a good-looking ball. Boy, that might have been the best first ball he's thrown today. 5-pin with nothing around it. That was the first 9-pin drop of the day for George McAllister, and he takes advantage of it. So he'll put a spare in the 10th. And George forgot it was the 10th. Forgot he had to throw another ball. It's a big ball, too, because this should drop the lead down near 20, depending on what his fill is. There's a big mark here in the 10th. Just missed the head pin, but he will take 8 for a 111, and the lead is 20 for Don Richmond. 131 for Don to 111 for George McAllister. 1 game complete in our championship match, and we'll be back on Stars and Strikes in a minute.
Nice try, George.
And a $10 for George McAllister. George seemed to find the range a little bit at the end of game 1.
He did. Seemed to loosen up a little bit. Was right on that 5-pin for the spare in the 10th.
Oh, my.
Right on the head pin there. Takes out the 1, 8, and 9. Gets a little smile out of George.
Let's see. Oh, boy, he took out the 10-pin cleanly, but nothing else on the right side. Now, see, that's the difference. If that's just the 2, 4, 7, and 10, that's a great shot for a spare, but the other 3 pins were there, and it's just a 9-box. Don Richmond second by just 3 pins to George McAllister in that final roll-off held at Boutwell's Bowling Center.
He was 529 after 4. And his wife came up and asked me, what do you think? I says, well, I think he has to throw about a 140 game to get into this group, which was like 569, 568, 668, 669. She says, what's it going to take to get to this one? Meaning, pointing to George McAllister. I said, well, it's going to take a 163. She says, that's nothing. She says, that's not out of reach. And boy, he almost did. He came up with a 160 game. 3 pins shy of George.
A mark to start the second game, but a half Worcester fill. Trying to work out of it. Well, with Don throwing a 131, just a 6-box. And a sarcastic
Tough
Bronx cheer.
Tough crowd. Whoa.
A Bronx cheer from the crowd here. Geeorge McAllister off the head pin, but it's a pretty nice break. The 1 and the 8 with plenty of wood in between.
Your thought was before the $6?
My thought was that with Don throwing a 131, regardless of who wins this match, at this point at least, the 410 of Bob Kelly is somewhat in jeopardy.
Sure.
Well
Still
within reach. Yep. Big ball for George. Trailing by 19. He puts 7 on his spare.
4, 5, and 7. Got to go after the 4-7, but you got to be careful that you don't leave the 5 and swing the wood around, or the 7 pin.
Yes.
Oh, very nicely done, 2 in a row. So he's making a mini run here at Don Richmond.
First time George has been able to put marks back to back, but he's got 5 marks now in the last 10 boxes.
And Don Richmond going through the middle, 1, 5, and 9. He started with a spare, only got 2 and then a 6 box, so he has 18 after 2.
He's got to watch out. He's going to get booed again. $8. So there goes 10 pins of the lead.
That lead is now just 10. Plus the fact that Geeorge McAllister's got a mark already posted in the 4th.
I should say, there go 10 pins of the lead.
Yeah, he's got some help coming. Resting up against the 5 pin. Well, not quite resting against it, but he's going to need it.
Oh, yes. Both bowlers with spares up, and we take a break here on Candlepin Stars and Strikes. Don't go away. Geeorge McAllister testing the slide, getting ready to go. Good match going here, championship week. Just 10 pins the difference right now. George with 2 marks in a row, looking for the big fill, and he will get it. 8.
9, 10, but he's got some lumber in front.
Oh, yeah. 3 in a row for George. Nothing complicated there. 6 spares in the first half of the match for Geeorge McAllister. Don Richmond with 5 spares and 1 strike to this point. Six fill this time, but again, wood. Whether it's angled just the right way is another question.
It might be too deep for the 7 pin.
No, the ball almost helped him, but not quite. Almost. That's a 10 bucks. So 80 through 6. As you see, George has been able to chop quite a bit off that lead, but Don will regain some here on the fill on this spare. 8. Big pin going down there at the end.
Certainly was.
The 8 in the back.
And that pin rolled over behind the 2 and the 4, so he actually could be on the 4 pin and still make this shot.
Yep.
Like that.
I don't think Don wanted to do that, though, judging on his reaction. On the head pin again, 8 more, but it'll be a little more difficult this time. At the halfway point now, Don Richmond at 193 and George McAllister 181.
You have to go left-hand tip of that front piece of wood.
Yes. Fine shot. 3 spares in a row for Don Richmond now, as he answers back. George misfires on that one. Almost.
Nice try.
George pleading at the foul line.
I was going to say, if body English counted for anything, George would have had it. That'll be a $9. Ball slipping into the channel. But here's what happened on the second ball. Just missing the 7. Back in the pocket, but yet another split.
2, 4, and 10, and no playable wood. He's going to have to do this on his own.
It was actually a little high in the pocket that time, but almost. Oof. Boy, that could just as easily have been 2 spares. I think George might have tickled that 10-pin on the way by. It looked like it was wobbling a little bit. And another $9. But 2 very close calls there for George McAllister. Let's see if the 2-pin touches the 10. Yeah, you see it wobbling
yes,
just a
did
little.
move.
Yep.
98 through 8. 2 open frames, though, and Don Richmond's going to work on his spare first. Drops 7. 6, 9, 10. Triangle in the right-hand corner. Trying to make it 4 in a row. Remember last week he ran 7 marks in a row in the second game.
Nope. So that keeps the lead at 20. Tied up in this game. Boy, another triangle.
This time he's got a little help. That wood will kick forward, whether he goes in the 2-5 pocket or the 2-4. But you don't want to hit it full. $21 now is the lead for Don Richmond.
George McAllister, after 3 spares in a row, has now gone open in 3 in a row. But 2 very close calls last time up, and look at that. Wow. Seemed like a better ball than that. The 5, 7, and 9 with no wood.
Certainly did.
Can he cut the 5 over into the 7? No.
Good night, guys.
$9. We tape Candlepin Stars and Strikes, as always, here at Park Place Lanes. Always a great place to visit if you're looking to do some bowling on your own, or if you're going to join us for a taping here on Stars and Strikes. And when you do stop in, be sure and allow time for breakfast, lunch, or dinner at the Willow Tree North restaurant, located right inside Park Place Lanes. Breakfast, lunch, or dinner, great service, great prices, terrific food. It's where the crew eats. Willow Tree North restaurant, right here at Park Place. 117 for George McAllister, 2:28 after 2.
These 2 important boxes for Don Richmond, not only to increase his lead, but give him a shot at a high seed in the Tournament of Champions.
Yeah, if Don were to go open in both of these boxes, it would take a huge score by somebody to to get into those top 3 spots. That is a spare.
And a very nice one at that. Watch him play the wood effectively. As long as the ball stays on the lane, he can hit that part of the wood. That's exactly what he did.
Just catches the head pin.
Oh, good break, though.
Wow.
He could get them all.
Every time Don has had a 9-drop today, he's had either a plank in front or a helper pin. And as a result, he's got 5 spares on 5 9-drops. Whereas last week he missed a couple. But 2 big marks there, as you said, Dan, not only for the lead and to increase the lead, but to give himself a shot. To give both guys a shot at the top 3 spots in our Tournament of Champions seedings.
Yeah, we're not conceding this to either bowler yet, but it's just that Don is going to be a little closer to the Bob Kelly.
And obviously, if George comes back and wins it, he's going to have a big score. So either way, the score could end up in the top 3. So 264 for Don Richmond, a 36-pin lead after 2 games with 1 to go as we look for our last qualifier for the Tournament of Champions. We'll be back in a minute. Five bowlers are already in, and in about another 10 or 12 minutes, our 6th bowler will be in. It'll either be Don Richmond or George McAllister to join this group, and right now, Don leads with a 264. So I would say it's fair at this point that Dan Broder is going to wind up as the number 6 seed because, for instance, Don needs only 99 pins to pass him. And he starts with a spare, his 11th mark of the day. But then there's quite a gap between, you saw Dan Broder there at 362, and then Rich Clark up to 396.
Right through the middle, just 5 in that spare.
Nice try, Donnie. Yes, that's the rule.
10 for Don. George McAllister in need of marks, trailing by 36, plus opposite a mark here in the first, and almost his first strike of the day. Would have been a good time for it.
You might have to pay a double, you know. I'll put it in your
5-pin with a plank in front. I'd take my chances on this one. I think I get hit 5 out of 10. Spare up for George. That's what he has to do, trailing by 36 coming into this game.
Well, he had 3 marks in a row midway through that second game. Looked like he was on a roll, and then he got robbed a couple of times and wound up open 5 boxes in a row. And there is his first strike. Could easily have been a double strike. A hard 9-drop and then this. So that takes 5 pins plus off the lead right away, depending on the fill. Don Richmond back to work with a spare leave of his own.
No, not quite.
Now that wood wasn't particularly angled right.
I need to be over a little farther to the left and have the 7-pin covered.
Oh, and this time the 1 and the 8 chopped out.
Well, boys and girls, hang on to your hat. This is far from over now. George was to get up and throw another strike. Could actually take the lead. Don Richmond will be open the third and the fourth frames.
Nice 10. That is a great 10 by Don Richmond after chopping out the 1 and the 8. He had a 6 box earlier in the match. He didn't want to have another bad box, and he worked out of that in fine shape. But here's a big ball right now for Geeorge McAllister. Lost it just a little bit to the left. Wants to get as much as he can on this ball. When he threw it, I thought maybe he had a chance to make it.
It looked like it's a tough angle for us. We're just to the left of lane 32, but it certainly looked like he had a shot at making that spare when he left his hand. He's 45.
Taken 10 pins off the lead, but now has an opportunity to take more. Off target to the right this time. But that wood in a pretty good spot, perhaps, to cover the 9 pin. Missed the object. We will take a break from Park Place Lanes in Windham, New Hampshire. Championship week continues. Geeorge McAllister trying to roar from behind. He's taken 10 pins off Don Richmond's lead. We'll be right back. Don Richmond, as we rejoin our championship match here at Park Place Lanes. Don't forget, our Tournament of Champions begins next Sunday at 12 noon. But don't forget us on Saturday. You can warm up for Tournament of Champions weekend with Candlepin skins on Saturday at noon from the Londonderry Bowling Center.
Boy.
6. And more booze.
They're actually booze or ooze, like, you know, they don't expect these bowlers to do that.
I know. Maybe they're just saying, Don.
Yeah. I admit, it's a tough crowd here today. They want excellence.
Well.
Yes. Makes you want to put your shoes on. Well, not really.
What it does do is it opens the door wide now for Geeorge McAllister, trailing by 26, but opposite just 14 pins in those 2 boxes. Even if George would have just put up 2 10s, he could cut the lead to 20. Oh, but how about this? A 9 drop. This is only the second 9 drop of the day for Geeorge McAllister. Other than the strikes. The strike, he had 1 strike. But this is only the second 9 drop. And both of those have been converted into spares.
So he gained 4 in count there.
Plus this ball.
Oh, that's a good looking ball, too.
Wow. Got the wrong 2 pins to go over.
But he may have a shot. Let's see if the wood's not going to rest up against the 2, but I would think he's got a shot with the wood into the 2 pin and then eventually the 10. I want to make sure that other piece of wood doesn't stop all the action going across.
Looks pretty good. Oh, yeah. Great shot.
Got a match.
We sure do. 4 boxes to go. And this thing is just about brand new again. The 2 and the 10 on the deflection. 4 boxes to go.
Don will be open again. At 6. He opened with a spare 5, and then he's gone 6 frames without a mark. Dan Broder was in 5th place with 362.
Oh, there's a big ball for Don Richmond. Huge ball right there, confidence builder. Yeah, I think it's fair to say at this point, Dan, that it's going to be Dan Broder against the winner of this match next week.
You have to watch the wood behind this 5-pin. This is no guarantee.
Played it on the outside, though. A smart play, and a big mark there for Don Richmond. Huge. Could help him preserve his lead. Here's another huge ball right here for Geeorge McAllister.
They're all going to be huge now. I think right on out. This is too close to call. This is a fill on a spare.
Uh-oh. Well, again, hit the object pin. Sometimes bad things happen.
What you want to do here is try to get to 10 box, or at least a 9. You can gain another one and count, and then try to put up a mark in the 8th. Still got some work to do.
Gets a couple of these, he'll knock the lead into single digits. He does. Oh, gets a little break. And he'll take an 8 box, so with a spare working for Don Richmond in the 8th, the lead is now just 8 for Don. So a mark would be crucial here for George.
Yeah. You got to assume Don is going to fill that spare up.
Oh, big ball. Almost carried the strike. Boy, a piece of wood walked right over near the 7 and disappeared before it got there.
This must look like a pencil down there to George. A big, big spare. He's got it. No,
he
hit
hit
the
the
wood.
piece of wood in the channel. That's a 9 box.
Tough shot, George.
So we go to the final 2. Don Richmond will have a 9-pin lead plus this ball. And unless somebody puts on a gigantic finish here, we're going to have...
Still isn't over.
We're going to have, regardless of who wins it, we're going to have Dan Broder against the winner of this one next week to start the Tournament of Champions. The question is, who will it be? Oh, almost. Oh, my. He cut the 3-pin into the 2. Straight across. A 10.
He worked it out for a 10 box.
Watch this now. The 3-pin right across into the 2.
It's too sharp on that one then. With no mark, George still has a chance. If he gets a mark, George's going to need probably a double strike. Well, he wants some wood in there.
That piece of wood may or may not be in play. It looks like it's in play right now. You can almost see the line on the lane. Going to have to be checked, but I thought from that last camera shot that we had, you could almost see the very thin line on the lane, the deadwood line. And
I think you're right.
Yeah, I think it's in play.
Yeah,
it is.
Cindy doesn't even have to go all the way down. So
you can almost, right in front of the cap of the wood, you can see that line going across the lane. That's the deadwood line.
Let's see what he tries to do. Play that one or try to get by it? He's trying to get by it. Oh, what a shot.
Fine shot.
Oh, terrific. Not much room to get by there.
13 marks for Don Richmond. He is at 365 plus a ball.
Well, anything 7 or more would make Geeorge McAllister throw a double strike.
Right in the middle for a big number. 8 for Don Richmond, 109. 373. So that means George must have strikes somewhere.
Needs 45 pins, I think, to tie.
And there's one. George has to have a 145 to tie, so he needs 41 pins. So he must throw another strike right now. Whenever he threw a strike, he had to throw another one right after it, so this has got to be a strike or it's over. Off target to the right. Don Richmond is the winner. But boy, it was a terrific comeback attempt by Geeorge McAllister here in the third game. 6 is the fill. And a 9 box to go out for Geeorge McAllister, 129 and 357. But George made it interesting, putting a strike there up in the 9th. And if he had thrown a double, well, things could have turned out differently. But Don Richmond hangs on, gets into the Tournament of Champions. He'll be the number 5 seed. And we will tell you about the first week of the Tournament of Champions when we come back with our bonus ball contest and more in a minute. Back we are at Park Place Lanes, 373 to 357. George McAllister will take second place this time, $500. Congratulations, sir. It's tough to come back from 36 pins down in one game, but you gave Don a scare, I'll say that.
I had my chances. I just didn't take advantage of them. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, we appreciate it. Terrific comeback attempt, and we hope to see you again soon, George.
Thank you.
All right, that's George McAllister, our runner-up today. And now, our bonus ball contest, looking for a second winner in a row. After a big $150 winner last week, Don Richmond will try it again, and we've got our cleaned-out barrel here already with a whole bunch of new postcards in it. And for the second week in a row, Don has thrown a 7. Let's see if it works again for him. Let's see. Not this time. Mrs. Adelma Murray from Gardner, Massachusetts. Her guess was 8, so Mrs. Murray will be sending you a consolation gift. Our jackpot will be up to $30 for the Tournament of Champions next week, and there is a check for $1,000, sir. Congratulations. Nice work.
Thanks. Well, I give myself a scare, and whoever else, it was nice, I mean, to go in with the lead, I guess.
Right.
But you try to get a better score or something, I don't know whether that made any difference or not, because obviously there must have been a tighter ball, because the pins were falling much tighter, those 5 boxes after the first spare, and 5 or 6 boxes.
Right. All of a sudden you go from worrying about your score to worrying about making sure you win the match.
Yes, yeah. Because he did put some pressure on there, and it got very close there, and he threw that strike in the 9th box very easily. If he had hit that head pin the way he did to get the strike, you could have been talking to somebody different here.
Well, the good news is you're into the Tournament of Champions. It'll be your first time. The bad news, I guess, if there is any, is that you'll be right back here with us next week in the first show.
Bottom seat. Hey, that's all right. At least I'm there.
We'll see you next week, Don. Thanks very much.
All right, thank you.
Congratulations to Don Richmond, $1,000 richer. And Dan Murphy, let's look now for the first time at our full field for the 1996 Tri-State Megabucks Tournament of Champions. It will be Dan Broder as the number 6 seed and Don Richmond as the number 5 seed. That will be our first match in the Tournament of Champions. That will be next Sunday, and then, of course, we will move on up the ladder. We have, as it turned out now, with our 6 qualifiers, we have 3 number 1 seeds and 3 number 2 seeds. Don Richmond wrapping it up.
Well, it tells you one thing. They all know how to win. So it should be a great field, and I'm looking forward to it as well as the rest of the people here.
We will see you next weekend. Candlepin Skins on Saturday at noon, and then the Tri-State Megabucks Tournament of Champions starts next Sunday at noon here on the Winds. Until then, for Dan and the whole crew, I'm Doug Brown. Have a great week, everybody.